Hi everybody. So in the next couple of days, I'm going to do a video about how I believe a people's vote is going to happen. So I'm going to either do that tomorrow or the following day. But today I wanted to do a video that was actually inspired by Ian Duncan Smith, of all people. And I wanted to talk about why Remain voters like myself are so angry about Brexit, why it's going to motivate hundreds of thousands of people to go on a march on the 23rd of March in London, campaigning for a people's vote. So listening to Duncan Smith yesterday, I realised something about his language, and it was the use of the word them when referring to the European Union or European Union citizens. And it just sounds wrong to me. He was using the words them, their, they. Now, to me, those words are wrong when referring to these people. What we should be using is the words us, we, are. And I think that difference in use of words explains exactly the difference in viewpoints that the two camps in this Brexit debate have. So from a Remainers point of view, Brexit is seen really as a negative. It's about destroying something that we have rather than creating or enhancing. It's about moving away, and it's not about coming together. So Remainers really see Brexit as half the country deciding to strip away the rights of the other half. But it's not just that. It's about the lies that we're told, and it's about the effect this is going to have not only on us, but on our friends, our family, our neighbours. It's about othering people. As I say, it's a negative. There's no positive in this. And a lot of Remainers, like myself, have an emotional attachment to European countries in the same way that most people in this country have an emotional attachment to, say, Scotland or Wales or England. There's no difference. Now, can you imagine if I, for example, came along and said, right, I'm going to put a border between Scotland and England? Well, there's been centuries of intermingling. There's been centuries of intermarriage across these two countries. People from Scotland living in England, people from England living in Scotland. And if you all of a sudden decide that you're going to cut that off, then people are going to be rightly outraged, especially if there's no plan with which they can understand the mechanism of how this is going to work and how this is actually going to affect these people. It's also about denying opportunities. So opportunities that I've had all my life as being part of the European Union, of the EEC when I was very young, but the European Union that it evolved into. And these opportunities I've been able to enjoy. I've felt inclusive with regards to being part of a greater supranational body. And I want these things for our children and our grandchildren and future generations to enjoy. But again, Brexit seems to be about stripping that away from our children, from our grandchildren. And it really seems to be about emotion with regards to support for Brexit, people that support Brexit. It's about emotion. It doesn't seem to be based on fact. And it's almost like Brexit is some kind of god that in itself trumps even the rule of law. Because if you remember back to 2016 or 2017, Gina Miller, much pilloried by the proponents of Brexit and many supporters of Brexit, had to take the government to court to allow them to ensure that our sovereign parliament was able to carry out its democratic duty during the Brexit process. The irony of this is, the fact that Gina Miller, who many Brexit proponents angrily dislike, actually having to take steps to ensure that our sovereign parliament was able to act in a sovereign manner, something that Brexit proponents said Brexit was all about, is it's just ridiculous. It also seems about expert opinion. expert opinion is ignored in favour of anyone who says what we want to hear, and this populist sentiment has really cowed our political class, our politicians, and it's a populist sentiment that seems to have swept the country. And history tells us that populism is rarely, if ever, the same as rationalism. So it was really about the very soul of this country and who we are as people. But the thing that compounds this even further is that all the promises made during the referendum by the Leave side, they were often contradictory, have been shown to be false. They've been demonstrably shown to be false. From it should be the easiest deal in history to more money for the NHS to we'll have the exact same benefits. Now, they've been proven to be false because they've been replaced by the narrative that can be summed up by things like "we survived the war," or as Jacob Rees-Mogg said, it may take up to 50 years to feel the full benefits of Brexit. And this is something that people like myself have been screaming about ever since the referendum in 2016. But of course, it takes time for these things to actually be proven to be true, for it to be proven that these things were lies. And now the truth is there, yet people still don't seem to want to see this. Again, it's because it goes back to emotion, where emotion trumps the truth. And this makes us angry because there's no logic to this. It's irrational. I don't care what anyone says, people did not know what they were voting for during the 2016 referendum. They simply couldn't have known, because we still do not know what Brexit is. Now, if you do believe that 17.4 million people voted for the same thing, then I want you to ask yourself this one question, okay? If we had a referendum with three questions in it, three answers to it, there's no transferable vote. And now the answers are: we leave on WTO rules, we leave on Theresa May's deal, or we remain in the European Union. Now, if you don't think that referendum would be acceptable because it would split the Leave vote, then you have just admitted that people did not know what they were voting for, or that the 17.4 million people that voted for Brexit on that one day in June were not one single homogenous group that had one single view. Because the truth is, as soon as you try to define Brexit, it loses any majority support. And if we look at Theresa May's deal, which currently is the definition of Brexit, well, it seems that the only people that really support this are people that are just fed up with the whole Brexit thing, and they couldn't care less what happens. But the reality is that Remainers and Brexiters will be unified around Theresa May's deal, in that both groups will hate it. It lets everyone down. There is no win on this. Now, it's not just Brexit. It's also what Brexit appears to have enabled. So we're also angry about the far-right resurgence in this country. Now, this is something that Jacob Rees-Mogg even admits to. But what I don't agree with him, when he says stopping Brexit will help the far-right rise even further. Because Brexit is one of the main reasons for the rise. And you do not appease these people. You fight against it. You fight against what they stand for. And that is what we are doing, in addition to fighting Brexit. Because Remainers see very little upside to Brexit, whereas some Brexit supporters seem to think that it's this panacea to resolve all the issues this country faces. Issues that really don't relate to the European Union, but rather to successive government policy failures, yet they still see Brexit as being the answer to all of this. And I keep seeing ridiculous Facebook posts. There's one that is utterly fake. It's utter rubbish, and it's regarding the Lisbon Treaty and how apparently in 2022 it's going to force the UK to join the Euro and the EU to become one nation state. Now, how do you fight such utter rubbish and outright lies? I don't know. I don't know, but it's another thing that makes us so angry because it is so false. It's so fake. And it enrages us because people don't seem to want to actually fact check these things. They'll take a meme or they'll take this Facebook post as being fact. When in actual fact, what people should be doing, which is what I do, is I look to reputable sources. I look to academic sources to verify whether something is correct or not correct. But unfortunately, so many people in this country don't seem to want to do that. So to me, and I'm sure many people like me, Brexit is based on truth in the same way that the Rothschild conspiracy theory is based on truth. In other words, it's utter rubbish. Both exist because they are born out of the need to blame. So they're born out of the need to blame the other. It's lazy, and worse still, history shows that it's dangerous. And it's coupled with an anti-intellectualism, where anyone who is an expert says things that people disagree with are labelled as a harbinger of Project Fear, regardless of whether they're truth. I mean, people will say both sides lied during the referendum campaign, and to a degree that is true. They did. And people will often cite George Osborne's emergency budget statement or Mark Carney's dire predictions. But what people seem to conveniently forget is the day after the Brexit referendum, when all the politicians were running around like headless chickens, Mark Carney took measures to bring stability to our economy. He eventually pumped billions upon billions of pounds into it via quantitative easing. And this is something that our children will have to pay back. So that is a financial consequence of the Brexit vote, as well as the fall in the pound, etc. So although the exact predictions may not have happened, what happened was those predictions were, or the effects that those predictions represent, were just diverted to other things that aren't so prominent to the general public. And if he hadn't done this, if he hadn't pumped in these billions of pounds into the economy, what would have happened? Well, we don't know, because we've got no way of telling, because he did pump that money in, so we can't tell. And this is the crux of the matter. Because he did that, he postponed the worst effects of the vote. And by doing that, he enables Brexit proponents to claim it was all Project Fear. It's the same as, the Y2K problem being, being cited as Project Fear is a perfect example. I was involved in Y2K preparations in the 90s, and I can tell you that the reason things didn't happen in the year 2000 is because there was billions and billions and billions of pounds. There was thousands and thousands and thousands of people all around the world working on these systems from the mid-90s, upgrading systems, upgrading platforms, going through code to ensure it didn't happen. It's the exact antithesis of Brexit preparations. It's a bit like your doctor saying, if you don't stop smoking, you're going to get cancer. So you stop smoking, you don't get cancer, and then you blame the doctor for Project Fear because you haven't got cancer. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So I'm going to ask you this. I mean, what is the point of Brexit now? Given that all the promises that were made have been proven to be lies or false, what are we actually going to gain? If you still think it's about sovereignty or controlling immigrations to levels you're happy with, then think again. The complexity of our economy and the interconnectivity of the modern world means none of these things are going to happen unless you want the UK to be like North Korea. And I don't believe many people actually want that. The truth is, no country in the United Kingdom has been completely in control of its sovereignty since perhaps during the Dark Ages. Maybe Mercia or Wessex were briefly in control of their sovereignty and authority, but even that's doubtful. So basically what I've done is, I'm aware that this might not be a particularly controlled conversation, but to sum up, people like me are so angry about Brexit because it treats people that we consider to be us in a terrible way, whereas Brexit supporters consider these people to be them. That's how it seems to us anyway. It's about lies, it's about all the lies, and it's about the fact that emotion seems to trump reality. That Brexit has almost become, the support for Brexit has almost become like a cult now. Or even faced with absolute truths, and when you're faced with evidence that is demonstrably, factually true, people still refuse to see this, and they still refuse to accept this. And it's about the rise of the far right. It's about the soul of the country. It's about where we're going as a country, who we are as a country. It's about our rights being stripped away from us. So it's complex, it's deep, and it's not going to go away. And that is why hundreds and hundreds of thousands of us are going to be marching in London on the 23rd of March in support of a people's vote. Now, if you agree with me, then I urge you to come on this march, because this is going to be huge, I think. And people, you know, I was on the last one, I've never seen anything as big as that in my life. And I hope this is going to be just as big, because we've been ignored for too long. The 48% have been ignored for too long. And the politicians have pandered to the lies and to the extremism that some of the Brexit proponents espouse, and we need to fight against this. So I thought it'd be useful to try and coherently explain what motivates us, and I hope you've enjoyed watching this. If you like these videos, do subscribe. There should be, I think there's probably a watermark that will come up on the video, so do subscribe. And as I say, tomorrow or the next day, I'm going to do a video on how I see us getting to a people's vote during the next weeks and months. Okay, thanks very much. Take care.